It's really been really good being here today, all day for the assembly and here for the rally and seeing so many old friends from times before and lots of new friends too. And I was thinking about how I for one got involved in all this. It was back in 2015 and certain things happened. Someone stood for leadership of the Labour Party, who actually had something interesting to say, which is unusual, was quite appealing, and so I thought, well, I get a vote. I'm a member of Unite, and I voted, and he won, and so I thought, well, something's happening here, and maybe I kind of need to get out of my cynicism and which well-earned cynicism after many decades of horror. And actually get involved. So what I did was I started saying yes to everything. Yes, got involved. Joined the Labour Party. Yes, kept saying yes. With the result that I ended up as a parliamentary candidate in 2019. So be careful. And yeah, you never know where it may lead you. This limited vocabulary has kind of got quite a limited use, and it doesn't stand you in too good a stead when things get a bit more subtle. But it does mean here I am standing in front of you today and helping to welcome you all to your party as we develop it, and to Jeremy, an inspiring figure. I mean, I remember back in 2015, 2016, posters appeared, a picture of a certain gentleman's head, and underneath it, a single word. Do you remember what that was? Hope. Hope. What a radical concept that was in 2015. Who had ever heard such a thing? And it seemed completely irrational and unreasonable. How can we find hope in this? But it's miraculous. We kind of did, and we found out that when we developed hope, all this other stuff came along. All these things started seeming possible again, like a new green industrial revolution. A restoration of British industry based on technology which could change the world and kind of create real employment. So, the people of Camborne and Redruth, who I stood to represent, they could get jobs which weren't changing the tyres on other people's cars. They weren't just making various kinds of coffee and all of it tasting like mud. Not cleaning Airbnbs and holiday cottages in houses which their children will never be able to afford to buy. But actually the kind of job which used to give those communities real respect in engineering and in the old days in mining. But these things kind of, we all had our favourites, those of us who were involved in those days, and some of you will be too young. Our favourites for the manifestos of the Labour Party in 2007, 2019 under Jeremy's leadership. My particular favourite, National Education Service. Lifelong education on demand. Imagine. You could re-educate yourself, or any stage in your life, for what you needed to be, or for what you wanted to be. That would have transformed our lives. So many others. Councils building council housing again. 100,000 a year in the 2019 manifesto. These are the kind of possibilities which are becoming re-evoked. Because the other reason I'm here is because I'm very old. Really old. So old that I remember times when people's minds worked differently. This has seemed difficult to believe for people who never experienced this, who aren't old. But we didn't think in the same way. Back in the 60s and 70s when I was growing up, an example, in 1966, Ken Loach made a television film called Cathy Come Home. A lot of you have seen it, still shown sometimes now. Very remarkable film. But what it's actually about is a family who become homeless and then lose their children and split up through a loophole in the housing legislation. And this caused outrage. It caused real shock in society. There was questions in the Houses of Parliament, the charities formed to deal with this. But generally people were outraged at the idea that this family could be thrown out of their house and lose their children because of this. And this was about a loophole. So what would the people of 1966 have thought about the housing situation now in Cornwall? They would have found it unbelievable. It would not have seemed possible to us in those days that things could have got to the situation that they're in now. Because it was our view, we've been brought up to it, we've been brought up in a welfare state with the National Health Service. And when I was a child, my parents always told me that Britain was the envy of the world, not because of the gunboats, but because of the welfare state and the National Health Service. And that we believed constantly, and all politicians had to work for this, that lives would get better, that our lives would get longer, that there would be less inequality, that no one would be homeless. That was unacceptable completely, and that generally there will be this progress, this idea of progress. And then came 1979, and Margaret Thatcher came to power. That's an easy pantomime villain, isn't it? Yeah, okay. There's no, yes. Well, you're quite right, but yeah, we all share that perception. But the particular horror of Thatcherism for me is the way that it killed those hopes. It killed those expectations. It transformed our minds so that we no longer expected it. And we got to the stage by 2015 where we no longer saw anything as possible, not even hope. But then there came this new phenomenon, this almost like a Beatlemania. It was. There were chants. There was all these changes. But in this bizarre experiment was Thatcherism. Slowly, people began to lose not only their hopes and not only their dreams, and not only their incomes and not only their security in the worth, but with policies like the slow grinding and cutting of funding to local authorities. We've got to the situation now where our communities look and are disintegrating. I've been wandering around the Midlands and the north of England because of a bizarre new hobby I've got, and going to these market towns that even 20 years ago would have been hotbeds of conservatism. They were the very heartlands of conservatism. These comfortable market towns in the rural communities of the north and the northwest. They look desolate. Even they have got empty shops now in the high streets. There's hopelessness, there's smashed windows, there's dirt everywhere and there's rubbish. And these places too are starting to exhibit the symptoms of this kind of falling apart in beliefs and hopes and actually in the structure of the landscapes and the communities around them, and people become hopeless. And they not only become hopeless, people need stories. They need to feel part of a story. And if you don't give them a good one, they'll find another one. And we're starting to see the symptoms of this. All the towns of the West Midlands and the Midlands, flags attached to the lamppost. Flags are a blunt instrument. You know, they could mean a lot of things. They could mean a variety of things. Like we see our Cornish flag, and it ties us to our homeland. It's never been used in war. It's not been used to fight anyone. No one's been oppressed using that flag. Not true of the butcher's apron, the Union Jack, Union flag. So different people are going to perceive these things in different ways. But they can't be seen as anything other than sinister in a situation where those flags are generally waved now by extreme right-wingers. And these are external symptoms. They are not only put up, not a thing here so much, but up country. They're not only put up, but they're tolerated. And they're not pulled down immediately. And this is a kind of sign of things when people look at them. And they might look at them ambivalently, but they are looking at these symbols, which are very blunt instruments. These totems are sinister because of that, because of what they might mean. So we need a better story. Now, above all else, we need a better story. And here we are, we're taking part in the writing of a better story. We're here today to celebrate and participate in the creation of a new party in the UK, a new party which stands for that belief that we can make our lives better. We can make our lives longer. We can house our people. We can make them more secure in their work. We can give them rights in their work. We can give them rights not to be oppressed for their colour or their religion or their sexuality, their gender or anything of that kind. We can make this a better country. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Paul Farmer.